Good morning. Today's topic is, can you roll a solo 401k into a SEP IRA? Have you ever wondered what happens if you want to move your solo 401k into a SEP IRA? Maybe you are switching business structures, working with a new tax strategy, or simply trying to simplify your retirement accounts. But here's the big question. Is it even possible? And does it make sense? Most people think rolling accounts is a straightforward process. But when it comes to a solo 401k and a SEP IRA, there are special rules you don't want to overlook. One mistake could mean unexpected taxes, penalties, or even losing out on certain benefits. We'll discuss this topic today. Also, go ahead and type over questions that you have regarding any aspects of solo 401k plans. It doesn't have to be specific to today's topic. It can also be questions regarding self-directed IRAs, traditional 401ks, and the business financing, aka rollover business startup 401k. And we will pause and answer those questions as they come in. Please also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please also like today's webinar to help get the word out to other solopreneurs like yourself. Let me go ahead and share some information here. So here's a good slide regarding our YouTube channel. We have over 900 videos there. We cover topics almost every day specific to retirement accounts. So that video catalog is free for all to view. Also, if you missed today's webinar, you can go there and view it later. You can also join my community. It's free to join. We have over 33,000 members out there, and they're constantly posting forums. Many advisors, CPAs, attorneys will post blogs out there, so guest posts to get their knowledge out there in front of the community, and they'll even link back to their company website. So that way, if clients want to explore your services, they'll be able to go directly to your website, directly from that blog post that you post. We also have our artificial intelligence, which is the address for that is www.solo401k.ai. So you can get to it by also going to solo401k.ai. So we are very active in the solo 401k space, as you can see. So let's continue with today's topic, which is, can you roll a solo 401k into a SEP IRA? So have you ever wondered what happens if you want to move your solo 401k into a SEP IRA? Is it even possible, and does it make sense? So let's delve deeper into that. So yes, it is possible to transfer a solo 401k to a SEP IRA. So a SEP IRA is a self-employed retirement account for those who are self-employed. And it's not just for owner-only businesses. It can be for a full-time employer that decides to offer a SEP IRA instead of a traditional 401k. Whereas the solo 401k is specifically for owner-only businesses that do not employ any non-owner full-time W-2 employees working 1,000 hours or more in the business. So that same requirement does not apply to SEP IRAs. So if you have a small business with employees that are working full-time W-2, you could open up a SEP IRA. It would be sponsored by the business. And then, of course, a SEP IRA only allows for employer contributions, which is different from a 401k, which allows for both employee contributions and employer contributions. So a SEP IRA is only for making employer contributions. Therefore, if you do open a SEP IRA and your business employs full-time W-2 employees, you would also have to make employer SEP contributions for each of those employees. That would be mandatory. So you want to think about that. But let's talk about these rules. So what the law says about rolling a solo 401k into a SEP IRA? Well, one, you have to approach it from a solo 401k perspective. So this is someone that already has a solo 401k and they're exploring moving that solo 401k to a SEP IRA. So the regulations do allow for the transfer of a solo 401k to a SEP IRA. So for example, let's say you're self-employed and you don't employ any full-time W-2 employees in your business or any part-time employees who have worked for that business for 2 consecutive years, where they work between 500 and 999 hours, then you can continue with the solo 401k, but you can also open a SEP IRA as well. In other words, you can have a solo 401k and a SEP IRA at the same time for the same self-employed business. Keep in mind, however, that it may not make any sense because the contribution rules are aggregated between your SEP IRA and your solo 401k for that self-employed business. And also the solo 401k already allows for that employer profit sharing contribution on top of an employee solo 401k contribution, whereas the SEP IRA only allows for employer contributions. So if you decide to have both, keep in mind that you have to aggregate the annual contribution limit between the two. In other words, for example, for tax year 2025, the overall contribution limit is $70,000 for someone who is under age 50. So if you have both a solo 401k and a SEP IRA for your self-employed business, between both plans, you can now contribute over that $70,000 figure. Now, sometimes I'll see clients open up a SEP IRA on top of a solo 401k, but very rarely. I usually only see that when a client is nervous about having to file a Form 5500 Easy, because a Form 5500 Easy applies to a solo 401k plan once the market value of that plan exceeds $250,000 in market value, whereas SEP IRAs are not subject to that 5500 Easy informational return. So some clients will open up a SEP IRA and keep their solo 401k and move some of their solo 401k to that SEP IRA. So that way the value of that solo 401k is below the fair market value of $250,000, which again would trigger the requirement to file a Form 5500 Easy for that solo 401k plan. Now, another scenario where I see clients transfer their existing solo 401k to a SEP IRA is when their self-employed business grows. That means they've hired full-time W-2 employees, or they have part-time employees who meet that 2-year Secure Act requirement where that states that if you employ a part-time employee who is a W-2 and works between 500 and 999 hours for 2 consecutive years, that you're going to have to offer a 401k plan. Well, when those circumstances occur, the solo 401k client decides to close the solo 401k and transfer the funds to a SEP IRA. But again, if you transfer your funds to a SEP IRA for your business as it grows, keep in mind, you're going to also have to make SEP IRA contributions to those W-2 employees as well. So you're going to have to make contributions to their SEP IRA funds as well. So if you do not want to be subject to having to make contributions to your employees, then you may want to consider transferring the solo 401k to a self-directed IRA or traditional IRA instead, because that's not an employer type of plan. That's an individual retirement account, and therefore you could make IRA contributions and transfer your solo 401k to that IRA as a non-taxable direct rollover. So that's what you want to keep in mind with respect to deciding whether or not you want to open a SEP IRA or not. Now, tax implications that could affect the transfer. Well, number one, anytime you move money from a solo 401k plan to any type of IRA, you want to make sure that you meet the IRS requirements in order to do so. For example, if you want to transfer your solo 401k to an IRA and you're still self-employed, the only way you can move those funds to that IRA is if you are age 59 and a half, or if you decide that you want to close your solo 401k, which will have a ripple effect and not being able to participate in the solo 401k until 12 months later. So those are things to understand regarding the moving funds out of a solo 401k. Now, you can move it to a SEP IRA if it's a SEP IRA for your self-employed business. And that's if you're still self-employed, in other words. You don't have to meet a triggering event there. And of course, you're going to have to transfer those funds out of that solo 401k once your business employs full-time W-2 employees who are not owners that work 1,000 hours or more, or they've met that 2 consecutive year period where they work between 500 and 999 hours in your self-employed business. So as far as pros and cons, so again, I've been talking about this at great length here about some clients will open up a SEP IRA for their self-employed business and also have a solo 401k at the same time. And they do that because they're trying to stay below the annual reporting for a solo 401k plan, which is the Form 5500 Easy. As far as cons, most clients do not move funds from a solo 401k to a SEP IRA unless they have to, which again, they're required to do so if they're no longer self-employed in a business that only employs them, but now they have a business that also employs full-time W-2 employees. So that's an issue. So some of the cons are that you cannot borrow from a solo, you can borrow from a solo 401k plan through a participant loan. Unfortunately, the regulations do not allow you to borrow from the SEP IRA. Also, with the solo 401k, you can make both employee and employer contributions, whereas a SEP IRA only allows for employer contributions. A solo 401k also allows for the mega backdoor Roth solo 401k strategy by making voluntary after-tax solo 401k contributions. That's not allowed under a SEP IRA. So those are some more cons. Typically, if you want to invest in alternative investments, and you want to do that through a SEP IRA, you have to open up a self-directed SEP IRA, which oftentimes comes with more fees. Whereas with the solo 401k, you can invest in alternative investments directly from the solo 401k, and the fees are very low. Also, when you utilize a solo 401k plan to invest in real estate, let's say a rental property, and you want to utilize non-recourse financing where the solo 401k obtains a loan to invest in real estate, that's not going to result in having to pay unrelated debt finance income tax by the solo 401k. If you use that same strategy in a self-directed SEP IRA or a self-directed IRA, that unrelated debt finance income tax does get triggered. That's a big con. Also, with the solo 401k, you can claim the auto contribution tax credit, which is $1,500 spread out in $500 increments over 3 years. SEP IRAs do not allow for that auto contribution credit. So that's another big con. Those are some of the things to understand. It looks like we've got a question here. Let's take a look at that question. Let's see here. I filed a Schedule C and also received self-employment earnings reported on a K-1 from a partnership with my wife. Since self-employment tax is paid on the K-1 earnings, can I include those earnings when calculating my solo 401k contributions? So it looks like you are self-employed as a sole proprietorship, and therefore you file a Schedule C, which means you could open a solo 401k plan and make contributions based on your Schedule C. Line 31 would be the starting figure. And then you also appear to be self-employed in a partnership with your wife, and you report self-employment income from that partnership by getting a K-1. Therefore, you can also make solo 401k contributions to that same solo 401k plan sponsored by your sole proprietorship, since that partnership business is just you and your spouse. Now, if your spouse is also, if that business, if that K-1 business, that partnership employs any non-owner full-time W-2 employees who work 1,000 hours or more in that business, then no, you cannot contribute to your solo 401k plan based on your partnership income from that partnership. There may also be other implications if that partnership employs non-owner full-time W-2 employees, depending on the control group regulations. And if that business does business with your Schedule C business, that could preclude you from continuing with that solo 401k plan. So you first want to determine whether or not that partnership employs any non-owner full-time W-2 employees who work 1,000 hours or more. If it does, let us know so that we can walk you through those regulations. But as long as that partnership does not employ any non-owner full-time W-2 employees, then yes, you can contribute to the solo 401k plan based not only on your Schedule C line 31 net self-employment income, but also on your Schedule K-1 that you receive, or the Form K-1 that you receive from that partnership, as long as you're reporting self-employment income and that K-1 from that partnership. Good question. All right, it looks like we don't have any other questions. Go ahead and type over your questions because we are at the end of our session here. We'll be going live again here in a few hours. So if you did not get a chance to ask any questions, you can ask them at that time. Please also subscribe to our channel to receive notifications when we go live. Please also like our video to help get the word out to other solopreneurs like yourself. And until next time, have a good rest of the day.